Hi, in this video we're going to be talking about solving equations. Now they start fairly okay and then they get a little bit tricky towards the end, so please do download the worksheet, have a go at each of the questions, compare your solutions. Okay, let's get to question number one. So in question number one we've got x plus 3 equals 15. Now I know that you know that it's 12, okay, but we're going to go through a method on how we're going to do that. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to write this as minus 3 both sides. Remember, we're balancing around the equals sign, so therefore if we're minus 3 from this side, it means I just get left with x, and on the right hand side I get 12, and that's the answer to that particular question. I appreciate that's fairly straightforward, but that particular technique is what we're going to be using throughout the rest of these particular questions. Okay, so let's have a look at the next one. So this is a minus 4, so therefore I'm going to add 4. I'm going to do the opposite each time, and therefore I'm going to get x equals 16. That'll be the answer to number 2. Number 3, well, I've got two lots of x equals 24, so I'm going to divide by 2 both sides of the equation. That's going to give me x equals 12. Okay, so hopefully this should be fairly straightforward for you. All I'm doing is I'm balancing everything around the equals sign. Let's move on then to question number 4. Okay, so question number 4, I'm going to add 12 to both sides, and that's going to mean that I've got x equals 27. Okay, right, so let's move up a little bit and we'll have a look at the next few questions. Now, the next question is a little bit more tricky because it's got a fraction built into it, but we're going to use exactly the same technique. The whole idea is really to get x's on one side of the equals sign, everything else on the other. Okay, so on this particular one, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 3 to both sides, because if I add 3 to both sides, I lose this minus 3 and I get x over 2 equals 9. The second bit of that is it is a fraction, but it basically means a half of x. It's x over 2 is a half of x. So if I multiply both sides by 2, it means I get x on its own. Okay, so if I multiply both sides by 2, there we go, I'm going to get that and that cancel, and I just get x equals 18, which would be the answer to that particular question. Let's move on. There are, I think, a few other fraction questions in this particular series, but hopefully that will give you some idea. Okay, so moving on to F. Well, I've got minus 4 both sides, and that's going to leave me with 4x equals 16. I'm going to divide by 4 both sides, and that's going to give me x equals 4, which would be the answer to that question. Okay, let's move on then to the next two on this particular one, where we've got x's on both sides of the equation, the equals sign. So this is something that you need to kind of take care of, and this happens more frequently with foundation and also higher type papers. So what I normally do is I get my x's to both sides of the same side of the equation. So that and that go. 5x minus 2x is going to give me 3x, but I've still got the plus 3 equals 9. So therefore I'm going to minus 3 from both sides, and I get 3x equals 6, and then I'm going to divide by 3, and I get x equals 2, which is the answer to that particular question. Okay, so that's that kind of process of going through each of the stages of how we deal with linear equations. Okay, let's move on then to question number H. Letter H. Okay, so this one, well, I've got 6x here and 2x here, so I'm going to minus 2x from both sides, same as I did in the previous question. That's going to give me 4x minus 1 equals 15, but that and that disappear. Then I'm going to add 1 to both sides, and therefore I'm going to get 4x equals 16, and then I'm going to divide by 4 both sides, and therefore I get x equals 4, which is the answer to this particular question. Okay, hopefully that's all right for you. So what we've covered is all the basic techniques that we need in order to deal with solving linear equations. So let's go to the second half of this particular test and have a go at some of those questions as well. Okay, so on the second half of the test, we've got now this type of questions. Okay, and what we're doing here is we're introducing brackets. Okay, but we're going to treat them in exactly the same way. So with a bracket here, all I'm going to do is I'm going to expand out the bracket before I then solve the equation, but I'm still going to use the same process. Okay, so if we expand out the bracket, what we're going to end up with is going to be 3x plus 6 equals x plus 4, and then I'm going to minus x from both sides. Remember that I need to try to find a way of getting my x's together, so I've got 2x plus 6 equals 4, and then I'm going to minus 6 from both sides, and I'm going to get 2x equals 4 minus 6 is minus 2. I'm then going to divide by 2, and I'm going to get x equals minus 1, which is the answer to question number letter I. Okay, let's move on then to J. Okay, so with J, again, I need to expand out the bracket, so I'm going to get 2x minus 2 equals 12x plus 12. Okay, now for the first time I've got a higher value of the x's on the right hand side of the equation than I have on the left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work from the right across. Now it's a little bit counterintuitive, but however with algebra you need to balance everything. So therefore working left to right or working right to left should be exactly the same for you. You'll see what I mean. Okay, so in this particular case now, I'm going to get my x's on the same side, so I'm going to minus 2x, because that and that goes. And on the right-hand side, I end up with 10x plus 12, and on the left-hand side, I end up with minus 2. Okay, what I'm going to do now is do exactly the same done before, but I'm going to work it from the right-hand side across. Okay, so in this particular case now, I'm going to minus 12 both sides, and that's going to give me 10x equals minus 14. And then I'm going to divide by 10 both sides, and I'm going to get x equals minus 1.4. Now, if you prefer, you can write it as x equals minus 1.4. And because we read left to right in this particular country, then that would work for you. However, it's perfectly fine to leave it as minus 1.4 equals x. Okay, so that principle holds true for all of the algebra questions that we do. Let's move on then to K. Question number letter K, okay, is going to be, again, I'm going to find a way to get my x's on one side. I've got a minus 2x here. I don't like generally dealing with negative terms. They're going to be a little bit problematic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a positive term by adding 2x to both sides. Because if I add 2x to this side, it means this and this go. And I add 2x to this side. And what I end up with is 4x minus 6 equals 10. And then I'm going to add 6 to both sides. And I'm going to get 16 equals 4x, and then going to divide by 4, and I'm going to get 4 equals x, which is the answer to that particular question. Okay, so hopefully this is getting straightforward for you. Please do stop the video, have a go at each of these questions, compare your solutions. Okay, so let's move on then to L. Well, I've got 8x here and 2x here, so I'm going to minus 2x from both sides. And what I'm going to end up with is 6x plus 18 equals 26. Fairly straightforward one, this one. Minus 18 both sides, I'm going to get 6x equals 8. All right, slightly different because when I divide through by 6, I'm not going to get a particularly easy one, but I could write that as 8 over 6. I could also then reduce that to 4 over 3, or if you prefer a decimal, I can put 1.3 recurring. Whichever suits you is perfectly fine. Personally, I would probably use the reduced decimal of 4 over 3. That kind of works for me, but if you prefer it as the reduced fraction of 4 over 3, but if you prefer it as a decimal, that's perfectly fine as well. Okay, let's move on to the final two questions in this particular worksheet. Okay, let's have a look then at letter M, which is 10x here and 5x here, so I'm going to minus 5x from both sides. And that's going to give me 5x on the left-hand side minus 19 equals minus 14. And then I'm going to add 19 to both sides, so plus 19. And that's going to give me 5x equals positive 5. Fairly straightforward, divide by 5 both sides and I get x equals 1, and that's the answer to letter M. Final question on this particular worksheet. Hope it's been useful for you. Please do subscribe to the channel, like this particular video, download the worksheet. If you're not sure about anything, always add a comment below. Okay, so final little bit is this time again we've got 6x on the right hand side, so I'm going to minus 2x from both sides. That means I lose that and I get 10 equals 4x minus 22. I'm going to add 22 to both sides. That's going to give me 32 equals 4x. Then I'm going to divide by 4 and I'm going to get x equals 8. And again, if you prefer to, you can write that as x equals 8, which I think is what I just said. Okay, hope it's been useful to you. I look forward to seeing you inside the next video.